Curator of Academic Programs, and I serve as the liaison to the School of Art and Art History, as well as the rest of campus. So I worked a lot with faculty and students on the show, as well as museum staff like curators, preparators, registration. So hopefully if you have any questions kind of about the show in general, I should be able to answer those. But mostly what you're going to do today is hear from students whose work is in the show, and they can talk about the work that's on display and what they're doing in general. But first I just wanted to mention a couple of things about the student show in general, because I'm not sure if everyone is necessarily familiar with it. As you can see from the entry graphic, this is the 100th annual student exhibition here at OU. So it actually predates the museum, which opened in 1936. And basically every year, students who are enrolled in an art class have the opportunity to enter up to 3 pieces into the show, and then we have a guest juror who selects those works. So this year we had 216 entries, and the guest juror selected 55 of the 216. And our guest juror for the 100 was Michael Ray Charles, an artist, painter, who currently teaches at UT in Austin. So he was able to do all the jurying online, and then he came here for the opening. So basically in November we sent all the submissions to him, and he took 2 weeks to go through photos and select the works that are in the show. So that's just a little bit about the process. All the works here in this show had to be made in 2013, nothing before that. So the other thing I want to mention is the graphic and the logo. Another part of this exhibition is, because it is student work, we want students to also create the logo. So every fall, the juniors in the visual communication department, they compete to have their logo chosen for the show. And if it's chosen, they do all of the posters, invitations, the entry graphic, any graphics that go along with the show. So this year's winner was Hong Trong, and unfortunately he couldn't be here today, but he was very excited when his logo was chosen. The colors come from the logo of the School of Art and Art History, and the lines are actually made of student signatures that he just layered together to kind of look like drip painting, like Jackson Pollock or something like that. He wanted that effect, but it was created with signatures. I asked him if his signature was in here, and he said no. So I think I put my signature in. So I at least wanted you to realize that not only is it student work, but we also turn to students to do the design aspect of the show, which has always been a really great process working with the students. So we're going to kind of move into the show, and I just want to talk briefly about the installation process. So Michael Ray Charles selected these works in November, and they were installed at the very beginning of January. Normally our curators and preparators and registration, they work a couple of years in advance on planning exhibitions. So for that quick turnaround, you never quite know what you're going to end up with as far as the work goes. So really they can't get a sense of how they're going to install this show until the work arrives here in the museum, which that was at the beginning of December when students had to drop off their work. So I remember the head preparator when Courtney dropped off her piece, Whitetail. He noted that that might be a great focal point for the exhibition, and so he decided he would put that kind of in the center and then build the walls around that piece. And so it's almost symmetrical, the walls are almost symmetrical, but you really can tell, when you come in the show, that really is kind of what draws your attention first. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney Creedon. She is a senior focusing on sculpture. Is that correct?
I actually graduated in December.
Okay, she graduated in December. So congratulations.
Thank you.
But she's going to talk a little bit about this work, and so if you have questions for her about this piece, or maybe some of her other work that she's done, or maybe what she's going to be doing now that she's graduated, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
And we can get closer so you can look at the piece and how the preparators decided on the lighting. And if you want to talk about that, kind of what you were telling me beforehand, about the installation.
Well, this is my piece, Whitetail. I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak today. It's really fun to be able to talk about my work in front of people. My work is kind of derived from my childhood and growing up here in Oklahoma. I, grew up as a kid collecting sticks and frogs and climbing in the dirt and trees. I was a huge tomboy, and I've got the opportunity to travel as well to Washington and parts of Oregon, California, and Illinois. And I really fell in love with the textures and material and bark, moss, leaves, grass, and just organic materials. And growing up, I was interested in the arts, but I didn't know what I could do with it, and I didn't know enough about art to really pursue it as a career or anything. I was a junior in high school, and after Christmas, my parents approached me, and they told me that I wasn't going to go back to my high school where I had, I grew up with all these friends. I had all this community of friends to support me, and the day before school started, my parents moved me to a different school where I knew nobody. And that actually gave me an opportunity to really focus on what I wanted to do in the arts. And, I really just jumped headfirst into drawing, painting, sculpture, anything I could get my hands on. I taught myself how to throw. And after high school, I ended up applying for OU and went on a tour at OU's campus for the first time and absolutely adored it. The first time I talked to the students, they really encouraged me that I could do it and just be in the art department. And so I did it, and it was great. And I went through foundations, which was really a blast. I got to learn all the different techniques to making things down to X-Acto knife cutting and forming things out of just clay, dirt, anything. And my professors really pushed me to pick a theme in my work, but I didn't really know, I wasn't really, in love with anything. I didn't know what to base my art off of and all my work kind of piece it together. And I had a really hard time with that. I picked a theme, I picked, a subject to which I wanted to present my work with, but I'd make two things or two projects and then just completely toss it out the window. I just wasn't loving what I was doing. So anyways, I kind of stopped trying to choose a theme for myself and just kind of started making what I thought was pretty, what I thought looked cool. And I ended up making a theme all on its own just by me picking out things that I like, materials that I like. It all went together, and which was great. And so, my junior and senior year, I really kind of found my niche, and I love antique shopping and road shows, and I go every year to this one road show where there's just acres and acres and acres of found objects and materials down to car parts. I mean, there are bear cages, there are, old ceramic pots, there are linens, and there's china. I mean, miles of this stuff. And this past year I was there for 3 days and only covered about 2/3 of the entire place. I could not finish this entire road show. But I came back with old print rollers from the 1800s, and I made those out of lamps. Those are awesome. When I see an old, abandoned material from a farm or something, I think show it in, a gallery setting, make something cool out of something that is trash, basically. I also came back with these antlers, and there's an antler dealer there, and he actually had deer that were decomposing in his tent, and I could barely walk in there, it smelled so bad. And I found these antlers, fell in love with the shape. I mean, I felt like they were an art piece in themselves. Just the way they're pointed on the ends, and me falling in love. I love wildlife and preservation of, and outdoors, and the trees and just organic materials. I thought I could use these somehow in a gallery setting and represent myself through them. I have kind of an urban lifestyle, so I wanted to represent my urban lifestyle with these bases, and they're they're plasma cutted out of raw steel. I didn't put any type of paint or anything on them. I just wanted them to be raw. And I welded steel rods to the bases, and I wanted to kind of put nature on a pedestal and kind of really just kind of represent how I feel with nature, kind of put them on a pedestal like a throne to show the importance of what I think is important, just nature, organic. And I also thought it was important that these were not shot antler or shot deer. Antlers were not cut off antler heads. They were all shed, which antlers or deer shed their antlers every year, once a year. And so all of these were just shed, found in the woods, found on the ground, which I thought was very important. I didn't want to interrupt nature. Anyways, I appreciate you guys letting me talk about my art, and that's it.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
So I have a question. There seems to be kind of a nice ballet that's going on with the horns. Did you work with each one to kind of find, was it almost like arranging a canvas or something? How did
Yes.
you go about doing that?
I kind of did it by eyesight. I rearranged them first from smallest antler to largest, and there are actually 3 sizes of bases: small, medium, and large. And each antler individually, I kind of placed them to what I thought looked the best. There wasn't necessarily a plan. I made actually 4 or 5 of them to begin with, and I'm talking with teachers and professors and peers. I kind of came up with the idea, what if I made 50 of them? What if I made 100 of these, And I just placed them individually, and it ended up becoming something great out of organic material, I thought. But yeah, they're just individually placed like that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
To take too long on the individual pieces, but I just wanted to point a little bit about each one of them. A little bit of background. All 3 of these images were actually taken within a week of each other. Pretty amazing. All in Oklahoma. Over here we have a photo that was taken near Enid, and these 2 were taken near Beavers Bend, Oklahoma, which is in southeastern Oklahoma, close to the Ozarks. Very gorgeous. But I guess starting with a little bit about me. I'm a military brat. I've been all over the world. I've got 23 countries and 39 states under my belt, so I've got a lot of traveling that I've done. I like to storm chase, so I've done just about everything. Photography is really a passion of mine. I really come into it heavily in the last year and a half, 2 years. Really picked up a lot, especially when I joined when I came to the art college. I wasn't always a photography major, but this particular piece is actually one of my favorites, so I'm very happy that it got a little recognition. This was taken in the morning. I was actually camping with a friend, and he happened to leave the tent because it was about 30 degrees, very cold, and he went and slept in the car, and so all the body warmth left the tent, and I was freezing cold, and I decided, maybe I should get up and go make something of this. Probably one of the best decisions I made of that year. But I ended up capturing these images. There was a really nice fog mist coating the whole area as it's kind of like a peninsula that's surrounded by the river as it curves around it. So you have a lot of moisture in the air. The foliage was perfect when we were there. As denoted by over there, that's a similar area, and that was the sunset on the Saturday, and this is the Sunday morning close to sunrise. So very close time period, amazing the variety of colors I was able to capture and bring out in both of the images. I'm really happy with those. Moving over to the one that was taken near Enid, this was on a Wednesday. I can't remember if I skipped classes or something, but my friend asked me if I wanted to storm chase on that day, and being a college student, I didn't have gas money, but he was willing to finance the trip. So we ended up chasing some kind of, I don't know, not very strong sails, and eventually closer to night, we had a low-level jet come in, bring in the synoptics to give a really strong storm, and we got this gorgeous supercell. Headed towards Enid, the light that really delicately lit up the bottom of the structure of the supercell is actually from Enid. The strong lights, I believe, are from the Air Force Base, which really helped give some of the color to it. The majority of the light is due to lightning. The exposure is about maybe 6 seconds long, so the shutter was open for quite a while. I was able to capture that light with the sensor. But the lightnings within the cloud, there was no direct bolts that would be able to be seen. But I really like the way that it turned out because it gave nuances of the cloud structure and it didn't blow out the picture entirely. Yeah. Any questions?
What time of day did you say you took that?
That was, I think, about 7 o'clock. It was already nighttime.
Do you know it when you get it? I mean, was it one of those things where in 6 seconds, which I'm sure is a long period of time actually, that
Yeah.
you're doing it? I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
I was actually co-pilot and I told my friend to pull over the side of the road. We were not being rained on, so it's a lot easier to take photos when you're not getting poured on. But I had done some time-lapse footage and I just wasn't really happy with it. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take some still images and see what I get. And I saw it, and I was like, I think that's a really significant image. And I didn't think anything of it, and because we were still trying to chase down the storm, which unfortunately it dissipated after this. So that was about its crowning moment. But yeah, it wasn't until I got home and brought them on my computer that I was like, yeah, I'm really happy with this image. Any other questions?
Zach, what forest is that?
This is in Beaver's Bend, so I guess it would be close to consider the Ozarks. I'm not quite sure. It's still in Oklahoma, but really close to the border.
All right, thank you, Zach. While they play, or if you want them to watch them and then speak, but I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay. So yeah, this is my short stop motion animation film called Wheeler, and this was just an abstract idea that I just I was like, it's for an assignment for class. I was like, okay, I'm just going to just create something totally surreal and like come up with some kind of uncanny character. So I bike ride a lot, and I just was like, okay, I had a couple bicycle wheels in my place, so I was just like, I'm just going to use this and use this for something. Just do something with it. But anyways, after the thought started to develop, I just started location scouting, and just looked around Norman, and just Norman's got some just some unique areas that I just like have like bits of color that I just want to just add on to the background and that kind of thing. It's just something visceral about it. But so just having with stop motion animation, it's nothing but photos. It's just like one photo after the next. So with this bicycle wheel, it's like to do it, it's very tedious, and it's like you're moving this thing like a dime, like the scale of a dime, dime apart. So you're taking a photo and just adjusting it, moving it, photo again, adjusting it again. So it just it ended up being like about 3,000 photos or something close to that. It was a lot. Plus I shot this in beginning of September, so it was very hot and going back and forth. I had 3 bottles of water. I think there's 1 bottle of water that you can see in the background somewhere. Yeah. So it was. I wanted to do a variety of shots, like a wide shot, close up, just kind of just get the feeling of what this type of character is and what's going on in this, and keep it entertaining, keep the pacing flowing as well. Because for me, I've always been just captivated by film, and I went to film school prior to coming here, and but however, being in film school, there's a lot of techniques. They're just pounding techniques into you. But however, I feel like there wasn't enough art. There's no I just wasn't grasping my voice. I was getting the techniques, but I just didn't really see any kind of aesthetic value on it. And I felt like being in art school, I wanted just to gain more of that, and taking art history classes and doing more. So I love it here. It's just being in the art department and just collaborating with others and seeing everybody. Being in this type of environment is just amazing for me. I want to come back and submit more to other exhibitions in the future. So I just, for this, it's I don't want to make anything that's just to me bland or anything. I want to have some type of style, some type of rhythm, and this is my piece. This is from Mario Martinez, but he did a great job on this. I want to work for it. So that was anyways. Should I talk about both pieces?
Well, yeah, I think that, so basically there were 5 videos that made it into the exhibition. And so Wheeler, the one with the bicycle wheel, was by Aaron. And then the next video is called Passing Time, and it's also by Aaron. If you want to start talking about that one, and then they're all pretty short, so.
Okay. So yeah, going back to just as far as my motive, my voice, how I want to project through film, being this type of in this artistic way, I want to have this type of rhythm, just I don't want to have some kind of I don't know, bland type of cut. I just want to keep the pacing flowing, keep the audience captivated and just interested while watching it. So I feel like there's time is precious, and people's time is also precious. So it's I don't want to waste anybody's time. But anyways, going to Passing Time now. Passing Time is also just now starting, is a silent film that I had several ideas doing. This is also kind of for an assignment, and I had several ideas for it. And I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna improvise and really just, for me, and this was no budget. I didn't have a crew or anything. So this is very guerrilla style filmmaking. And yeah. So it's but at the same time, I did do location scouting. I was just I was into several areas around here in Norman, and I met this girl who's also in my class. She's a freshman, Bella Clark, and I immediately was I got to get her into something. Because I've done short films before in the past, and immediately it's just like the hair, her personality, her general. It's like, okay, I need to get her on film and just do something. So for the assignment, I was like, okay, what exactly can I do? What's going on in my head? And so it was like Bella and these other locations that I have in my mind, and like her walking around, this type of like rhythm, this rhythmic type of thing going. And the beauty about this too, it's like anybody can see it. I mean, it's not in any language. It's just, it's silent. You're just getting this type of visual, layout. So for this, I mean, it's very subtle. I mean, there's not too much color in the beginning, and now it's like, we see her hair, we see, I don't know, something about like, streets, streets and like parallel yellow lines, and like for these areas, it'll be another clip again. There's like black tar around it. I was just like, this is such an interesting, formal look. Anyways, this is it's a crazy shot inspired by Danny Boyle and Trainspotting, and like Ewan McGregor walks by like with a briefcase full of money, and he's just like the camera guy. It's just amazing. And there's one of the locations that I found, I just loved. I was like, it just matches her hair, and so I got to go back and just like shoot this with her in it, walking by. And it's very, I just got this, I don't know, like illusional thing going. I mean, Kathleen at one point, she was like, I feel like she's about to fall into the wall there. And somebody did something there, I don't know, some kind of like, three-dimensional thing with the bricks, and I was just fell in love with it. So when I'm making a film, production design is always going in my head. And I want to make sure that like, it's nothing tacky, it's nothing fake looking. I want to have something that's, natural. So it's like all these different factors, all these different variables are just floating around my head when I'm making these pieces. And anyway, we were just trying to figure out something to do, and like, I was like, just improvise, just feel like you're messing with this thing, because she came up with a peace sign. But yeah, so it's she's walking around town. It's a slice of life of this girl, and like, this is the final shot. I wanted to leave it off with, just, a realm of color. And I love the skate park here in town, the Andrews Skate Park, and like, these guys, several times, done graffiti work. It's just artwork, and some guy did over, like, I don't know if anybody knows the story, but anyways, they, somebody in the past did something really basic, and then this guy did it to like overlap it, so it's like this, LA art. If it's not so good, somebody's gonna make it better. But I just fell in love with the location. I felt like she fit the location, and I wanted just to, capture in this moment of being there. And on top of that, when I shoot, I like to get anything that I can in the environment. I like to utilize whatever's out there. So like these shoes on the telephone line, wherever, it's just there. The cup that you saw in the past, and I just like to like get as much B-roll, as they call it, shot. But anyways, any questions?
You have 2 videos. Any questions for Aaron?
I really love that passing time.
Okay.
That's like my favorite. The I don't know. There's some guys around here that sell like photographs like that up there. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's like my favorite part of the morning.
Yeah.
I love this town. I've only lived 25 years.
Yeah. Well, eventually, it's to me, it's such a small town. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and like I just grew up in a city environment. But just being here, I feel like there's just still a lot.
It's like a lot of ambiance and a lot of, it's like a wonderful, it's the biggest little village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Aaron. Sculpture. And will you finish in May, or do you still have?
Yeah, I finished this semester.
All right, well, early congratulations. I'm just going to turn it over to you, and then if there's any questions.
Like she said, my name is Chris Fleming. I'm in my final semester of my graduate degree in sculpture. I'm assisting Jonathan Hills in our sculpture department as his graduate assistant. I hail from just outside of Chicago, near Joliet, Illinois, and born and raised in the same house. And this series, I did a series of these palettes, and for those of you that don't know my previous work, I did a lot of stuff with, I'm completely obsessed with mid 20th century automobile design, 50s and 60s hot rods and custom cars, and the whole culture that revolves around it. It's a subculture, really, if you will. And that has basically consumed my life. My girlfriend's into it. And I have a car club that I started back in Illinois. And so I was coming from a family that focuses, we have a lot of artists in our family. We're all craftspeople. We have ceramicists, woodworkers, jewelers, graphic designers. So we're all focused on high detail and quality of craftsmanship when we're done. So a lot of my earlier work dealt specifically with the aesthetic of mid-20th century automobiles and the custom cars from that time period. And I used to talk about how it was about American nostalgia from that era. And I realized as I got into it more and through my time here as a graduate student that it was a lot more than that. It was about preserving our memory and our history as a community and as a society. We also often look back to that time period as the heyday, as the baby boom after World War II and how great it was and all these great things. There's a lot of bad things too. But we have this ideal of what it was like then. And so a lot of my work was trying to preserve that idea and put forth this utopian aesthetic from that era. Well, I realized there was more to it, and that idea of preserving history. So I started thinking about how we package and move and ship and store our history and our memories as a society and also as family. And so I started doing a series of pallets and boxes, cardboard boxes and crates and stuff. And this series is about focusing on that aspect of our society and how we pack up our memories, and we often store them in the back of a closet somewhere, this little cardboard box, or maybe you even pack them into a Rubbermaid box. But eventually those boxes get under the weight of 5 other boxes filled with more memories. And we entrust these cheap boxes and these pallets and these other storage devices to our most precious memories. They end up degrading and breaking down, and eventually you only have this small aspect, this ghost, if you will, of what the original memory and history was. And the next generation of the family has to piece it back together and start almost rebuilding that idea, that memory, that history. So that's what the series was about, taking these lost, discarded aspects of our society, these lost memories and lost history, and starting to restore them and bring them back into, a new idea and create a new history from those old memories. So I did a series of these. This just happens to be one of them. This is the 50s one. It's my favorite one, being that I love those cars so much. But I also did a 1960s and 70s, and I had planned for about 3 or 4 more that I'd eventually like to do, going through all the different decades and different design styles from those eras that I like. My new work that's going to be for my thesis this coming May or April and May is combining this with the aesthetic of my earlier work. Because I realize how much with my own family, I focus on the idea of what car each family member owned and how important that is to me and how I remember that person. So I'm building 7 pieces, and each one is designated to a particular family member, and then inside will be images, or not images, not like pictures, but ghost spaces that represent the memories that eventually fade over time. So there'll be cutouts of objects that represent memories from that particular person that I have. That's a little bit about this and kind of a generalization of my work and how we perceive and store and ship our memories and history. Any questions?
I will say that Chris won one of the awards for this exhibition, but also his work was in last year's exhibition, and he won an Oscar Jacobson Award with a special, it became a purchase award. So we do have a piece by Chris in our collection.
which is a huge honor.
So thank you. Concentrating on printmaking, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You would never know it. I came into the program under printmaking, so my images were very flat. After my first semester, if you were here for last year's show, I had a piece of hundreds of flowers made out of trash and printmaking inside a bassinet. And then after that exploration of working somewhat three-dimensionally with the paper, I ended up in a Native American history class where Dr. Mary Jo made the statement. She gave me the opportunity to work a little bit sculpturally for her, and she mentioned something along the lines of how in the beginnings of Native American culture, the art form came out of the geography. And so, for example, in New Mexico, you'd be having clay workers. Up in Washington, you'd have woodworkers, and that was, their art form was embedded in their geography. And so with that concept, I started to pull from my home, my geography, to build these structures or baskets or different types of forms. So anything that became a hindrance at home ended up in my studio. So if I had too much laundry, all my clothes would come into the studio. If recycling was getting out of control, that would come into the studio. And then with the work of these trees, the trash trees that grew up in my backyard that I could never quite seem to get under control, I just started digging them up and bringing them into the studio. And so the trees kind of work like a collaborative partner. You bring them in, you're not quite sure what they're going to give you, and as you strip them, strip off the leaves and stuff and kind of figure out what you've got, you learn how much you can control the tree or not, and so there's some kind of give and take with that. And then from there, it's kind of filling in positive and negative space with these materials, and it references consumption, obviously the different things that we consume, memory, because with this waste or this detritus of my daily living, there is a memory or memorial aspect to that. And so I've actually, in some of my later pieces, have started to incorporate journal writings as well in terms of referencing that stuff that have been in these memory boxes as he recently pointed out. And then control, means of trying to control chaos, control our lives, kind of clean up our own mess, if you will. So that's what this piece is about, and this is my current body of work. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you think you'll return to actually physically printing anything, or do you enjoy the direction you're going?
I'm actually, my next body of work will be kind of a step farther with this work. I'm going to start weaving in photography, so I'm getting access to the big, amazing digital printer that we have here, weaving photographs, and dealing most likely a little bit more with race relations than actual consumption or those types of issues, but still working with the trees, still definitely weaving, but the materials will most likely be changing.
Do you draw first, or is it something that just sort of, I know you talked about the tree and that kind of helps to determine, but is there a...
What I found with these collaborative partners is that when I have set out with a predetermined structure or form I wish to build, things have gone very badly in the studio. There's usually a lot of kicking and screaming and trees falling everywhere. So what I found is to just be very open. It's very much an intuitive process. I can pick and choose what I want to prove that. I can pick and choose the materials that I want to do. Some of my pieces are more contained, hold a form more, some are more airy and light with a lot more space between them. But as for the bare bones skeletal of it, you gotta do what the tree's willing to do. So you can force some things and not others. And in the drawing process, you have about 24 hours before the tree's not gonna really work for you. And so within that 24-hour process of getting that form, you can kind of force certain things, and then in the drying process, it's going to change a little bit. So, like this shape is much more oval now than when I started it, and I had different means of keeping it, wide open. But in the end, it's going to do what it's going to do, and so it did want to close up a little bit on me. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.